Are there days when you feel off, even if you know you eat right, drink up, and exercise? I've had a few of those days. Well, your body may either have too much or too little of the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and essential fats you need for a proper nutritional balance. Just how do we restore our balance, and how do we optimize our health by making the most of what we eat? Well, for a dose of health talk, we're now joined by Dr. Ted Achacoso, co-founder and chief science officer of the BioBalance Institute. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning.
What a pleasure to have you here. Okay, we were already chatting, beforehand, and we were talking about the concept. You were introducing me to the concept of measured wellness.
Yeah.
It's sort of a new term for me. What exactly do you mean by that?
What I mean by measured wellness is that you have to measure before you give in any supplementation,
Right.
like nutrients, vitamins, etc. What we tend to do is that we just like to take in all of these vitamins and minerals ourselves,
Right.
without any consultation as to what harm or benefit they might do to us.
Well, that's always how I've operated. There's a multivitamin. I always assume that I may or may not have taken in the essential vitamins and minerals that I need. So that's why I take a multivitamin. Doesn't that sort of cover what I need?
No, it doesn't. You have to make sure that you have measured first according to your levels,
Okay.
and then we develop a protocol, because there are several factors that would affect the levels, aside from the fact that you're actually getting deficient in
Right.
it. You may have been ingesting some toxins that affect your levels. Your gut may be in dysbiosis, or it's not able to absorb the proper nutrients for
Right.
you. And very interestingly, when you started by saying you feel off, feeling off is really being a shorthand for off balance.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what it is. I mean, I consider myself fairly healthy and fit, but despite my efforts of trying to eat well, keeping up with what I thought was my vitamins, and exercise, there are days when you wake up and you just feel sort of like, I don't have my mojo today, or what was it I ate last night that made me feel like this?
Yeah.
How do you sort of figure out those things, and how do you restore balance, so to speak?
There are several ways off balance. You can feel physically off balance,
Yeah.
where you feel fatigued. Like you said, you can feel emotional off balance, where you're cranky the whole day.
Right.
Or you could feel mentally off balance by being in a brain fog the whole day. Well, there are many things that can contribute to being off balance. What BioBalance Institute zeroes in is in your nutrient intake.
Right, okay.
So what we do is we take blood, urine, stool sample from
There you
you, process it, take a look at the whole picture from an intracellular level,
Okay.
and then give you a protocol, a wellness protocol that addresses everything from environmental toxins to gut health to macronutrients that you might need,
Right.
and micronutrients.
Okay, I mean, people might not realize it, but sometimes we tend to shoot ourselves in the foot. We love to stay fit, we love to exercise, but I suppose exerting yourself and putting that type of strain on the body does require you to sort of balance out the things that you put out, and you need to replenish those things and put things back in balance. What's sort of a big picture of how to go about this?
A big picture of how to go about this is really more on a big picture of health. We've been defining health always just as we've been defining health only as an absence of disease, but it's not that.
Right.
Health is the absence of disease and balancing processes in your body that build and processes that destroy. And that is a delicate balance that you have.
Okay.
So based on the definition of health, we can now take a look inside your body, leaving the organ systems that illness medicine doctors would check your lung, your
Right.
liver, etc. What we do is we get inside your cell, and even inside the organelle, like the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of your cell.
Okay.
Take a look at your energy production, what cofactors are needed, and so on, and then we bring those back up to normal
Okay.
levels.
I think also another interesting point that you brought up earlier was there's no one solution that will work for everybody. There's no magic bullet that here's a pill that you can take and I can take and we're both going to be fine.
No, it has to be customized
Right.
for you, because your levels are different. There are some people, for example, and good example is vitamin B9 or folic acid. Some people don't have the gene to actually cleave, or it's a two-step process to get it to the active form.
Right.
So 25% of the world's population will not have that gene, so you wouldn't know whether or not you actually need the active form,
Okay.
or folic acid. What we do at BioBalance is give you the active form right away, so we don't have any guesswork.
Okay. Well, I think that's really the point of what you're talking about here is you're eliminating the guesswork through a system of tests, really, and a system of customizing solutions for each individual.
Yes. Do not guess, because you might do more harm to yourself than good.
Well, speaking of on that vein, I mean, we were saying that just because you eat half a pound of green leafy vegetables and I'll do the same, doesn't mean we'll get the same type of how would you say, benefit from something like that. Some people digest it better, process it better. Some people even have allergies. How do you figure out what food is most beneficial for people and what they should stay away from?
The first thing that you do is, of course, get a food allergy test. And allergy is a very complicated thing in a sense that there's acute allergy where you eat peanuts and you're sent to the hospital, right? And there's the chronic allergy that we deal with, which is more insidious. Really, most of the patients that I have are allergic to milk and cheese, and they don't even know it. They have some bloating, but they dismiss it. But for example, one of the things that I love to do for people with osteoarthritis is just say, even if they're not allergic to milk, I tell them, take out the milk for about 6 months, come and see me, and usually the inflammation subsides.
Right, okay, see what happens after then. Okay, well, your mission really is to sort of take the concept of wellness, here in our country, up to the next level. There's a great interest nowadays from people to sort of address their wellness, to be a little more fit, to eat better, and that sort of thing. But a lot of people don't really know where to start, or there's a lot of misinformation going around there. What's your personal mission here?
My personal mission is actually twofold. One is to educate illness medicine doctors on what we're doing. There's the absence of disease, but there's nowhere in the medical curriculum that says this is cardiologic illness, and then here's your curriculum on cardiologic wellness. So here's your gastrointestinal illness, this is your gastrointestinal wellness. So what I like to do is to actually work with illness medicine doctors to develop all of these, and the way we can really only do it is to do quantitative measures of things that have to do with nutrition and things that usually you send your patients home for, like I only feel fatigued, or I cannot sleep well, and so on. These are very non-specific questions. But when you begin to measure their nutrients, for example, you begin to see that some of the stuff is plummeting, but not to disease levels. These are called subclinical levels. So when you see your doctor, it's already at clinical level. So what I encourage people to do is actually, before you take a look at to start drinking your vitamins and so on, have yourself tested. So you're not guessing, what nutrients you're going to be needing for yourself.
Oh, actually, you're hitting on an important point there. I think people tend to wait to address something like this, but when they start to feel something, if you think you're feeling great, which was our lead-in, if you think you're feeling great and doing everything you can, it may not really be the case. I mean, you don't have to feel necessarily ill or unwell to actually have an imbalance. Get yourself checked and tested and see if it is there, and try to improve on that, right?
Right. One of my favorite sayings is that just because you're not sick doesn't mean you're well. It only means you're not sick. Because there's a huge area in there. Like, for example, you wake up off. You go to your doctor and say, I'm waking up off, and your doctor will send you home. But if you take a look at the subclinical parts, the parts in the health spectrum where it's gradually slowing down, you could actually see that you're missing some nutrients.
Okay. Well, in line with getting people sort of on the bus of wellness here, what are the big trends? What should people be looking out for, and how should people approach taking the first step towards wellness?
The really big trends now, if you look at the movements now towards individual care, it's called the quantitative self. You quantitate a lot of these things, but there is no way to do that unless you begin to measure. So it's very interesting in this country that a lot of the younger people are now asking me about disease prevention. Like my grandmother or my mother has hypertension. Are there any preventive measures in cardiac wellness that I could do? So it's a lot driven still by the diseases that their parents have experienced, but they're now coming in and saying, well, what can I do to prevent Alzheimer's disease and so on. So that's in fact a very good way to think about things. That, oh, you have these diseases in your family. Okay, I don't want to develop those. Let's do preventive and promotive medicine.
Right.
You know, by checking in first. By checking in what you eat, you know, it's so difficult that because we all eat, we all think we're experts at eating.
Yeah.
So it's actually a more difficult mission for me to educate your illness medicine doctor that these are the things that are needed first,
right,
before your drugs. So when you're given the question, when I'm given the question, like, so Dr. Achacoso, how is your supplement regimen going to affect my drug treatment? I turn it around and say, no, no, no. What I'm giving is required by the human body. You know, you should think of how is your drug going to affect my nutrient levels.
Right. Okay. Well, you learned you know your field in Paris. You spent a lot of time in Washington. You also spent a lot of time here, obviously in Manila. You have the benefit of seeing what people. What folks are sort of lacking in those particular areas, and also the unique needs of people living in our country here in the Philippines and in Manila in particular. You know, what are the things that Manileños in particular? I mean, should we be a little more concerned about the levels of pollution?
Go out in the sun a little bit more.
Yeah,
we've found very many people have severe vitamin D deficiency, and you know, it's not that. It's actually quite interesting because we live in a tropical country, but we all hide from the sun.
Right.
And of course, our dermatologists say, hey, you know, put in your sunblock.
Sure.
So by the time that the patient reaches the illness medicine doctor, he or she already has some osteoporosis. You know, so that's one of the things that we've seen. The other thing that we've seen, of course, is we have a lot of vitamin B deficiencies.
Right.
And vitamin B deficiency is not enough to bring you to the hospital, but complaints of fatigue.
Right.
You know, complaints of fatigue and weakness and all of that, which could actually be readily remedied by that. The other thing that I really encourage people to do, which has nothing to do with supplements, is to please use your muscles.
Okay.
You know, people come to me and said, I would like you to deal with my osteoporosis. Well, you deal with that both hormonally and with supplements, you know, hormonally calcitonin, parathormone, and all of that, plus, you know, your vitamin D supplements and calcium and so on, but without any muscle stimulus, for example. You tend to leach out calcium from your bone, and then you have the same thing. It's sort of like, so I tell my patients, don't let your driver carry your stuff for you. Carry it yourself.
Okay, and I'd say that's a very unique, you know, situation that we tend to have here. You know, we have very easy lives. Well, okay, well, it's a very interesting field, and I think people would be interested to learn a lot more. Is there a website that they can check you out on?
Yes, it's BioBalanceInstitute.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much for helping us understand the concept of measured wellness today. Dr. Ted Achacoso, co-founder and Chief Science Officer of BioBalance Institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real pleasure.